cost of tomatoes, for example. If you go to this place, enormous amount of tomatoes are produced. The woman is by the water, and the whole expanse, unbelievable. So what did we find out? We find out middlemen will buy at 10 naira and go and sell at 50 naira. So, but that's going to stop. That's going to stop very, very soon. So, in terms of production, we are assisting a lot of people, especially women and young people, in terms of agri-production, providing seedlings, providing training. Because one of the things we notice is that people produce, but they don't make money. So they don't understand how to keep books. What about logistics? Instead of coming together to say, we need something, let's come together and get a truck. So everybody does individually. So we come in there, and we are realizing that logistic cost is coming down by 40%. So we are training people on not just how to farm, but how to do it on a business. How do you manage logistics? How do you go to the market? And so on and so forth. So younger people, we have all sorts of schemes. We have Araga, rice schemes, where people actually live there. They have 1-2 bedroom, depending on the size, and they have 2-3 hectares of land to create rice. So we have all sorts of schemes like that where we produce, but we know that we cannot produce enough for our state. And that's why we have those arrangements with other states. So we are also building a logistic hub in Imota, and it sits on about 300 hectares of land. Now, it's going to be the biggest in this part of the world. What does that do? We notice that we consume a lot of cows. We slaughter cows, cattle a lot in Lagos. We bring in food and so on and so forth. How do we track them? So what happens today is at where they are slaughtered, we have veterinary doctors from the Ministry of Agri who test and everything. So if it is bad, they just remove, burn, and so on. But we need to track back to the source to say, oh, okay, this head of cattle actually came from this state, and we notice this disease. And therefore, from that state, we can contact them and say, okay, we are stopping you from bringing cows to Lagos until you fix this, and there are people can go there. So that logistic hub will allow us to do that. Then another thing it allows us to do is we eliminate middlemen, because we have deal rooms. So if people want to buy, they go there and buy. And using our markets, the one like in Idioro. So right now, 5 is also ongoing. One is going on in Agege, Amuwo, Dofin, Aja, and some other 2 locations. So if we are able to populate the state with those like that, by December, I think 3 or so of them will be ready. So by next year, God willing, if we are able to populate our state with that, so goods can move directly from the hubs to this market, and people can just buy. And you notice that prices will drop, because first of all, it's stored better, and so on and so forth. The advantage for us is it allows us to store wet and dry agri-produce for 6-9 months. So let's say in case of any shock, at least we are sure that for 6 months, we can supply staple things, rice, yam, beans, and so on and so forth, that people can, let us even assume we don't have any production. So that's the end game for us in Lagos too. But that thing is going on now, it's huge. And in terms of foreign direct investment, that's why, you know, Commissioner for Agri, they went to France recently. So there is a market like that in France that runs just exactly that, and it's been there for over 80 years. So it's mimicking that. And apparently they saw it, they came over to say, well, we'll be interested to invest. But we are saying, okay, let's build it to this stage, and let's see your involvement in terms of, because we want local people to benefit. We want our local farmers, not necessarily Lagos alone, in Ogun, wherever they come from, to be the beneficiary, and not necessarily outsiders. So a whole lot, training, production, marketing, and you know, building all these stores is going on in agriculture.
Okay, so I want us to take a look at the environment. Yes. I know that the environment sector is one of the focal points of the Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration. And then recently, Lagos State emerged to win our climate governance performance. I want us to please share with us some of the climate change strategies adopted by the Lagos State government.
So we have what is called a wash policy. What that means is, how do you manage water, sanitary, and so on and so forth, all those. So every society must have that policy. So it's like the norm in the society. What do you do? What do you, so that even if when people want to come in and say, I want to participate, they will look at your wash policy to make sure. So we just pass that now. Now, environment, like you said, is very key, and it goes from a whole lot of things, and it starts from our kitchen. Okay, so if I eat, where do I dispose that garbage? So Lagos has extensive drainage system. So what we call channels, channel 1 to 6, and they course across the whole state. Now, channel 1 runs from Agege and discharges at Odoyalaro. So imagine that distance. It's about 80 kilometers. So it goes through Ogba, all the rest, Ikeja, Acme Road, and the rest. So when we build roads, that's what we tell our people. We are not just moving human beings and cars. We're also moving water. So the drainage on Acme is about 3 meters. So that's probably the size of this road. So it's deep. When they were building and I jump inside, people have to drag me out. So it's about movement of water. It's about disposal of our garbage. And it's about understanding now that climate change is real. You can see what happened in Philippines. You can see what happened in China.
Even in America.
Everywhere. In Texas, all over the world. In Netherlands. You know, the flooding in Australia was the size of Germany. A whole site like Germany got flooded in Australia. So it's real. People must also understand that this Atlantic is the same one in the United Kingdom. So whatever happens there will affect us there too. Definitely. So it's real and it's global. So what we are also doing is mitigation, and of course we must change our ways of life. And that's why when Ministry of Environment were removing all those buildings on our drainage line, it was sad that people weaponize it and want to take it over. It's not. So we all said that, in another 15 years, population of Lagos will be 40 million. Where will those people live? So in order for them to live, we must manage our environment. Okay. We must manage our land space to make sure that people are able to build appropriately in the right places. So what we are doing is managing waste better through LOMA, make sure that we are disposing. One of the challenges we have is landfill sites. You know, so we are trying to talk to our brother in Ogun State to make sure that we have a land site that we can, because we are decommissioning Olusosun and so on. We are decommissioning them. They filled up, they've done what they need to do. So they'll be covered up, grained up, and hopefully we can turn it in 10 years' time to a golf course or whatever. But we need another land, huge land, where we can actually dispose and manage methane and all those things. We are working on that now. So if we are able to get that, we have transfer loading stations. Transfer loading station, what it does is, that's where you take all the garbage at night, and then you compact it. That's all it does, reduces the volume, and then you take it to the landfill. So that something that's supposed to fill this room will now be this site. And then it allows whoever wants to convert it to whatever they want to convert it to start to sort. And so we have an arrangement now with a company called Josbong that's trying to now convert it to fertilizers and stuff, and then another one to energy, though they will be using the landfill site in Ekpe for that. So it's movement. So garbage is something that we generate every day. But my point though is everything starts from how we manage our garbage.
It starts with us.
Because if not, it gets into our drains, it gets to this, and then it causes flood.
Okay, so you mentioned something on housing, on when to put everybody. Lagos State is set to have over 20 million residents. Some say it's more, some say it's less. So I'd like you to share the progress made in addressing housing deficit here in the state.
Okay, well, I think the first thing that I would say is it's not less, it's more.
It's more. Okay.
It's more, we do it. So, but the challenge for us is we have to start going higher. And that's why you see that all our homes are 4 floors, so that at least we can, because we don't have enough land.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is the management of our land. You know, when we were all in school, we all did economics and they said land is a factor of production. So if it is the factor of production, it is one asset that we have in Lagos that we must manage well. So when we say that you cannot build there, it's not because we don't want you to build. It's because that's probably not what it was meant for. So we must manage the land first of all. The second one is that we are engaging in housing estates across the state. So it's going on in Shagotedo. Phase 2 is going on in Shagotedo. Okay. That will be about 720 flats. And what we try to do is to make sure that it goes to younger people, people who don't have any property already. So you are a first-time buyer. So if you have a house, well, maybe you don't need to buy homes.
But how do you know those who have a house and those who do not have?
And so how do we know?
How do you know?
Well, so that's the thing.
Okay.
That's the very, very good question. You know that the biggest challenge for us in Africa, West Africa, East Africa, is that we don't title our properties. That's why we are poor. And we won't get away from it unless it changes. Do you know of anybody, anywhere, United Kingdom, China, anywhere, that don't have property title? So that person that you are helping to say is sick and cannot get money has properties, but it's not collateralized. Okay. And therefore, you cannot use it for anything.
For anything, yeah.
You understand? So if you listen to the news on they said President Biden has used his property in Delaware 4 times. He has refinanced it, made well over $2 million on it. That's because it's collateralized. That's because there are documentations. So it's like you and me not having a passport. How do you travel? Even though I know you, you're a good person, but I can't go to the airport and say, I know her, please let her travel. No, yeah. You must have a passport that shows that this is your name, this is your date of birth, and then it can track your movements. That's why they're able to do iris. So the same thing with our land. If we don't know it, if we cannot collateralize it, it's going to be a problem. So if people don't now register, it means they don't own those properties. Legally, that's what it means.
Okay, legally. Okay.
It means you don't own those property. And that is why when disaster happens, and sometimes it does, people say, I want compensation. But who says you are the owner? When you don't have any document. Because 4 people will now come and say, it's theirs. Somebody says it's my cousins. Who has the property? Who has the title?
My late mother.
So it's my late mother. But your late mother cannot talk for you. So that's the challenge. And that's what Lagos State is trying to do to make sure that, that's why, look, we've done a GIS of our state. We've mapped every inch of our land. We've done bathymetric chart to say what is the depth of our water. We know all those. We've done all the properties. In the ones that are 3D, we can flip them and say, okay, this house has 40 windows. But we need to know ownership. If we don't, it becomes a bit difficult, even in terms of investment. So the assets that we have in Nigeria, in Ghana, is enough for our population to be successful. But we have not collateralized them. So that is the big, in Ethiopia, 92% of assets are not collateralizable, no documentation. In Nigeria, so it's only even Egypt that is doing well. In Nigeria, the same thing. Because if you go to my father's village now, people don't, there are no titles. We must, so that's why Lagos State, what we are doing, even our estates, when you have a flat, you must have a subdeed title to say that, okay, this is the land, this is a whole building, but this part is my own. Okay. I must have the documentation. So that's why the most important thing is when you buy a property, register it. It's for your own good. It's to allow you to actually be able to use it for other things. Okay. So the problem with us is we get emotional with properties. But in other parts of the world, they don't. So that's why the most important asset that an American, a British will own is a house. That's what they will refinance to send their children to school. That's what they refinance to go on holiday, and so on and so forth. But we don't do that because this house is not for sale, beware. But you've never painted it for 30 years. So, you know, it's something that we all need to change in order to make sure that it's an economic item. It's not an emotional thing. It's a property, it's an asset that can grow in value, that you can dispose later, or that you can refinance to do something and live your life.
Okay. You know, but the property owners, they would say that there are bottlenecks, you know, to get this.
To ensure this, you get this document.
The document, rather.
Well, I've heard that many times. But, you know, think about it. If somebody is buying a property anywhere, so UK, US, you go to a lawyer. The first thing. And therefore, the money that you want to use to buy go into an escrow account that the lawyer for the seller can see and the buyer can also see. And therefore, they finalize their closure and they say, we've done closure. We are closing on their property today. Everybody will sign. The escrow account will now disburse. That's the process. So the problem is this. If I'm buying a property, I will send somebody. Why? So we have this idea of delegating.
And not doing it
And
ourselves.
exactly. So I will send my boy. Is your boy the property owner? No, it's my property. So I should go there. So lands, for example, if you are buying land, there is a land information system in Lagos that says, okay, I want to buy this land. What is it designed to be used for? So because we have models of all our land in Lagos, zoning and so on. Okay, so if you buy a land and you want to build a restaurant, but that's residential, you cannot. But you've paid to some family. So the first thing to do is and it's free, so that you don't have to pay. You get to Surveyor General Office of Lands, it's there. Just check. So, and then if you go to the title registrar of titles, it will now tell you, oh, this land belongs to Mr. A, based on our records. This is the document. So if you buy it from Mr. B, too bad. So the first thing is, let us do the right process.
Due diligence.
And I'm not excusing the fact that we have problems that we need to fix. We do. But part of the problem is also, so for example, we are scanning all the land records in Lagos to make sure that when you go into the system, you can track the root of title, that this land in 1804 was bought by these days. They have those huge CFO, they called Queen's Council document, whatever, and so on and so forth. But there are usually gaps. So somebody bought but never registered. So the root of title is broken. So those ones we put aside. But the ones that are complete is there. So if you want to check that this number of this, okay, it's owned by this family, they sold it, then when I get that document, I'm convinced that I can take it to the bank. So that's the most important thing, that we must also get involved in that process and not sort of give it out to people. Okay, you can give it to your lawyer, that's fine. He knows the process is representing you. But most of the time, people give it out to some people. And in the process, there are compromises.
Okay, Mr. Deputy Governor, we cannot talk about governance without talking about the public service. And it is believed that the Lagos State Public Service is the best in Nigeria. So how did the Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration achieve this feat?
Well, I mean, thank you very much. It's a good question, because the public service is actually the engine room. I mean, you have policies when you are campaigning and so on, but who is going to implement? It's those level 10, level 12 officers up to the permanent secretary. And I think it started a long time ago, during the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current president, right? When there was a conscious effort to say, look, because at the time, you know, people come to office, they don't want to bring a car, people want to dress anyhow. And the man said, there is no need for this. Okay, I'm even going to be giving our lawyers clothing allowance, because you need to wear that cloth to court. And you can't wear it for a birthday party. So, exactly. So, let us find ways to do all these things. Let us give our lawyer this allowance, let us give doctors this and so on. And if you, whatever you bring it doesn't matter. So that changes. I think they employed over 2,000, they called Millennium at that time, year 2000. And that sort of changes the culture. And then we spend a lot of resources in training. the Ministry of Establishment, we do a lot of training. So you will see people saying, oh, a mandatory. So if you are a member of, say, ANAN or ICANN or CIPM, whatever, so you see mandatory training. Well, it's mandatory because we make it so. And therefore, we make sure that our staff goes for this training, mixing with private sector and so on. I hope you are going here. But the reality is, they mix with people that are not civil servants. So the standard for auditors must be the same, whether you are auditing public or private. So we make sure that we do that training. And the other thing is, when we're in the Executive Council, we always make sure that we tell the commissioners and everybody, engage not just with the permanent secretary, engage with a level 10 officer. And when you do memorandum, when you do presentation, when you do policies, always let us remember that the people that we implement are those level 8, 9, 10 officers. If they don't understand it, ab initio, you failed. So we try to make sure that we are very granular in everything we do. So when people bring memo to the Executive Council, we don't want you to be all this esoteric. No. How does it affect people in Igodo? We don't want things made in Bond Street for Oshodi. So how does it affect people in Oshodi? How? If we implement this one, what does it mean for that market woman? What does it mean for a rich man also, somewhere? But let it be localized. We ask people to think globally, but act very, very locally, so that what you do is impacted, and it must be linked to one of those agendas, the team's agenda. So you want us to do this, spend this money. Where does it fit in? If it doesn't fit in, too bad. We throw it out.
Okay, we have said so much about the Themes Plus agenda and, of course, how this administration is impacting Lagosians. There is a particular anthem on the lips of every Nigerian now, and, of course, it is slated tomorrow. Whether it's going to take place or not, we don't know yet. And that's the End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest. So I would like to find out from you, is the state government engaging community development associations, security agents, and our youth, of course, who might serve as tool for these hoodlums who want to protest. And of course, I want you to be conscious of the fact that protest is a constitutional right. Is the government engaging people in such a way that we will not have a repeat of that nasty experience that we had during the NSAS protest?
Well, I mean, we are trying. We've engaged a whole lot, and you will see that even NAN says they are not participating, NLC says they are not participating. A lot of structured bodies are saying they are not participating. And the reason is very simple. I was talking to some youths some few days ago, and they said, well, it's all right. I said, yeah, that's true. It's all right. But the last one did not end well. So it's not our right to kill somebody else. It's not our right to burn somebody else's business. Exactly. It's our right to protest. But our experience has shown that it did not end well. So where do we stop? And I told them about my own personal experience. When we were in University of Ibadan, I think in 1983, we went on a protest. We destroyed things and so on and so forth in our school. Things meant to train us. And the school said, okay, they shut us down. And when we were coming back, our parents have to sign some documents in 1983. And we were made to pay. You know the sad thing? Some of us cannot pay, and they dropped out. Today, where are they? So life spoiled because we destroyed things meant for us. So the NSAS, we bought over 200 buses. Each one of them at the time, 70 million. Brand new. These are buses that can take care of people with disability that comes down. Now, those buses are about 7 times higher today. Where is the money to buy it? So those buses are for the common people. But we destroyed it. So we destroyed public works building. That's where we train pupil engineers. So imagine you have a general hospital and you can't train doctors. So when you are an engineer, they teach you in school mixing of concrete, this and this. That's where you practice it. You practice to say, okay, how do you do survey? How do you do measurement? How do you do your and so on? That's why we do it. Equipment, they are destroyed to train pupil engineers. So, you know, we cannot continue to hurt ourselves. And that's the point. But you are right that we said people have the right to protest, no question. But we cannot now take that protest to violence against interest, public properties. And I think everybody has said that, from churches to mosques to everybody. So we've engaged to say, well, it's okay to protest. We understand it is people's right. Prices of things are high because of various challenges. But I also tell people that it seems to me that we have a global crisis. It seems to me that prices of things are escalating, or hopefully very soon these things will be resolved. But like you said, we are engaging, we are talking to people to let them understand that protest, what do we want to achieve? Do we want to make things worse, or do we want to make things better?
My question is like...
Sorry.
Okay.
So if they eventually come out to protest tomorrow, is the Lagos State government ready?
Well, yes, we are ready.
Yeah, because my question is almost like hers,
okay.
that, there was a development last night, between last night and this morning, that, the protest, if it's going to hold, should be in a confined space.
Yes.
They mentioned the Freedom Park and the Peace Park.
Yeah.
But the organizers of the protest are saying, no, they have to hit the streets. This is
so the question
very
is,
volatile.
what is the essence of the protest?
Exactly.
Now remember, after NSAS, we all said, everybody said, oh, there must be a panel to look at it and whatever. Lagos State paid well over $1 billion to pay for people. Okay? The panel submitted a report, and there were recommendations. Okay? Members of those panelists were people now trying to protest again.
Yeah.
You understand? So, which is fine. Which is fine. We all said it's a constitutional right. Now, part of the recommendation was that dedicate spaces where people can protest. That was a white paper that came out of that. It was the recommendation that, okay, when people want to protest, give them spaces to protest. And that's why we dedicated Peace Park. That's why it was called Peace Park. And then, of course,
Freedom.
And I think the IG has gone to court, or the CP in Lagos has gone to court. The court has said, okay, give them these 2-3 locations. So are people now going to say, no, we won't listen to what the court has said? And the essence is to make sure that where your right stops, somebody's else right starts. So do you want to prevent people from going to the hospital or going to school or whatever it is? So, but you also have the right to protest. Absolutely. And therefore, let people go there, police can protect you there. So that's what the court has said. I've not read the full, but it's in the paper. The court has said so. And I think it's a balance to say, well, let people protest, go there, show your placard, do whatever you want to do, sing, whatever it is that you want to protest, so that the essence is for people in government to know that we are not happy. So if that is achieved, then I think that's fine. But we don't want people just going all over, because that's when bad people take advantage. So not necessarily the protesters that mean well to say, we just want to complain. And then that was what happened in here. So we must learn from NSAS to say never again in Lagos should this happen. Okay. But the security operatives are working with them, and I will say that they are ready.
Okay. With the rising population in Lagos, how is your administration addressing the challenges of youth restiveness, unemployment, and job creation?
Well, it's so, at Ojota and at Bega, we don't have a border post. We don't have visas. So people will come from anywhere. I just mentioned the fact that sometimes when we go around, you see 10, 11-year-olds sleeping under the bridge. And you wonder, and they tell you where they come from. And so the question is, how do you address it? Okay, how do you, if you recall, there was an outcry when we took some people back to Osun. People were making noise. And there was also a time, during the time of BRF, when Mr. Peter Obi was making political noise about taking people. But the reality was this. These people were trained. And they said, we can go back if you help us. What does help mean to you? I want to have some skills and give me some money. Okay. And we did. And people will now even and then, again, we are now being abused. But these are citizens. And at that time, we wrote to all the states to say, well, we have your citizens. These are the things they said. I recall then, Governor Kwakwanso was the governor of Kano, and he replied to say, you can bring them. And we did. So, you know, it's not a political thing. It's to say, how do we assist these people? What do we do? You understand? An 11-year-old that says, I don't want to go back home because home is very violent for me. So you cannot just throw that child out, get them to school and so on and so forth. So, but the adults get them to some skills, because without skills, what would they do? And so on. So, but for the youths, we are doing a whole lot. One of the things, again, that we're saying is let people bring their skills into play. So various MSMEs. Lagos is now the tech hub in Africa. We'll be going to GuiTech again with about 12 startups with fantastic innovations. So there are different levels. For the fintechs, we have what is called the LASRIC, Lagos State Science and Research Council, headed by a professor, outsiders. So what they do is they look for people that have initiatives, ideas, and then they pitch to them. They give them grants, whatever, and then we take them international. Hopefully, so I remember last year there's a young lady, that a youth corper, that came up with what she called pocket food. And the idea for her was, she was doing her NYC, and she said where she was serving, she couldn't get the type of food that she's used to. So how is it that in Nigeria I cannot buy any food that I want? And she found a solution to it. When we took her, so we funded it, we gave her the grant, whatever, and then we took her to GuiTech. She got investment of $100,000. So our life is changed. So that's at that level. But there are also small businesses that we also give grants, because we realize that the best way is for people to create wealth. You know, how many people can Lagos State government employ? But if people are able to use their knowledge, you know, to actually come up with something. So, and we realize that again, the MSMEs, the challenge is within the first 3 years, majority of them will die. How do we prevent that? What are the problems? So we notice that the problem is people probably don't understand how to run businesses. How do I keep my books? And so on and so forth. So Lagos State Employment Trust Fund actually also does that. So we have, the chairman of that board was a former MD of a bank, you know, and they were able to train people. So apart from giving grants, or apart from giving a loan of single digits, they actually also train people to say, this is how to run business. This is how to employ people. This is how to make sure you manage things, so that those businesses can keep growing instead of dying. And we are seeing good successes. So within the last 4 years, we've done close to 143,000 MSMEs, just doing little things, and then making money and contributing, paying taxes again to Lagos State. So it's a win-win for us. The youths are, and then we are doing training. We are doing in terms of sports and all. So different levels are different cadre depending on where you come in. But the essence is, but what I tell our youth is, being a youth is God-given grace. So everybody must go through age 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it's a natural thing. So the question is, what are you bringing to the table? Because that age will go. Okay. I was 5 years sometime, but I'm no longer 5 years. I'm no longer 20. So what do you use that age? What will you do with it? So don't go into drugs, because if you do, it will destroy you, and so on and so forth. And hopefully people are listening.
You know, Bukola and I were planning some cool, but we are not going to open it yet at this point on the program. We'll be taking a very short break. When we come back, we'll be speaking directly to Kadri Obafemi Hamzat, and not the Deputy Governor of Lagos State. Okay. We'll be back.